So welcome to the Symposium of Wild Hearts. I'm here today with Lauren of Wooden Spoon Herbs. She's an herbalist. She's from my home state of Tennessee, and she creates her own beautiful line of medicine using locally foraged herbs, of which we were just talking about. This has been a huge ally for me during the creating of the symposium. It's called the Anxiety Ally. So welcome, Lauren.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So one thing that occurred to me today, every day it's something new with the symposium, and that it was that our heart has messages for us. So I would just want to take a pause before we get started. Those of you who are listening, who may be driving, who can't close your eyes, just follow along to the best of your ability. So let's just flutter our eyes closed and get into a different sort of frame of mind before we get started. So just closing your eyes, if you can. If you can, just place your hand on your heart. Because what we're going to do right now is just listen and observe. It's so often that our heart or our soul wants to talk to us, and it just needs quiet. And our job is simply just to observe and not to place judgment on anything that may be there, just really looking at yourself through the eyes of a loving and compassionate parent, or as you would look at a child or an animal, just with love. So just taking a moment to tune in and listen. Is there anything you sense or see? Just a message. And we'll do this again at the end of the session just to see if anything's come up for you. So before we flutter our eyes open, we just want to take 3 deep breaths together. And if you want to just sigh it out, it's a good indication to the nervous system that you're okay, that you've arrived, that you're here. So just a deep inhale in. And exhale out. It's nice to hear your own breath. Let's do that 2 more times. Breathe out 1 last time. When you're ready, just fluttering your eyes back open and returning. And I'm always so amazed how different I feel with just like 30 seconds of just like checking in with myself.
Yeah, thanks. That was beautiful.
Yeah, and so instead of just reading your bio, if people want to find out more about you, it'll just be right below this video. But I thought, well, what I've been doing with all the other guests is doing this fun little game, and it's kind of like 20 questions, but it's only 11, and it's like rapid fire. So like, it doesn't really involve your thinking mind. It's just like whatever comes out. And all of these questions are different for each guest. So it's just a way to like get the energy moving and allow people to get to know you. So would you like to play?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay, so question 1, why is the sky so blue?
Space.
Describe a seed in 1 word.
A seed?
Uh-huh.
Potential.
Sorry. That's crazy. I always put it on airplane, but you know, real life. Hold on. Airplane it. Which I recommend all humans do at some point in time. Okay, what was Dolly Parton's first word?
Y'all.
Why are you so relieved?
Oh, gosh.
That's
It's sunny.
first thing.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
sunny out.
What's another word for wild?
Free?
Who's your favorite person?
My mom.
What's God's deal?
Chilling.
Show me your angry face. Oh, I wouldn't even know you're mad at me. Okay. Yell the first name you think of.
The first name?
Yeah.
Marshwanda.
Why do birds sing?
Oh, they're talking.
Hmm. What's your most used herb?
Let's see. Right now, I'm gonna say reishi.
Nice. Mushroom. I love it. Okay, so that's 11 questions. Do you
Cool.
feel good? The ice has been broken.
Yay.
I know it's really so much fun, and I kind of like bit it off of Jimmy Fallon, like he does it with all of his guests, and I just find it hilarious, and I try to incorporate it into my life as much as possible right now. So thank you for playing along. So I thought a good place to start with you would be because we live in a place that's so beautiful and abundant. And if you haven't been to Tennessee or to the Appalachian Mountains, you definitely need to come. Would just be to start off with your story and sort of how plants became so important to you. Let's start there.
So I was born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and right now I live an hour outside in the mountains of northern Georgia. And plants have always been important to me. When I was a kid, I just had like a total obsession with animals and plants and just kind of like all sentient life beyond humans and kind of like advocating for that and respecting that as best I could. And like, I mean, it's to the point where I had like file folders on my favorite animals and I would like get plants because my parents wouldn't let me get pets. And
I love it. I was going to ask you what that looked like as a kid, but thank you for describing that. Like you were really into it.
I was really into it. I like would read Cat Fancy just for fun and just to like look at animals and be like, what are they
Wow.
doing? Pretty hardcore nerd stuff. And so I was always really passionate. I was trying to be a vegetarian for as long as I could remember. My mom was like, no, no, no. And then finally when I was 12, she let me try it and it was a failed experiment. And then when I was 15, I went back to it and to this day I'm a vegetarian and couldn't wait to like buy organic and sustainable and give my hard-earned money to like causes that I care about. So it's always been a part of my life. It's always
Wow.
been
I love it.
yeah, so it feels really good to be doing it as an adult and for a living. I mean, and as my passion and all of those things. So it was always it was something that I was just born with. And then my kind of like activism took a turn when I was a teenager. I got more into like feminism and like DIY music and was a part of all of that. And through that actually came full circle to like food activism and fermentation. And then eventually learning about like backyard medicine for edibility, but then also realizing its medicinal potential. So that was probably like in my early 20s. And once I kind of like put all those puzzle pieces together of like, oh, we can like use these plants to take care of ourselves, it all just really clicked and was kind of full steam ahead to the point where I am now, which is like totally different than just going out and, picking what's in my backyard and making medicine with that. But I don't do that. It's just kind of taking a backseat.
Nice.
So.
I love to hear that because I mean, just looking at your packaging and how you do what you do and the beauty of your medicine, it seems like all those worlds collided into what you've created now. So it's really cool to see. For those people who are watching who may not know what locally foraged means, can you explain to them what that means?
Sure. So in the beginning, when I was starting Wooden Spoon Herbs, I foraged everything, which means I went out into the woods and harvested all of the plants by myself, or like I grew them or got them from local farmers. But foraging just means going out and harvesting from the wild. And then we can get into the conversation of ethical harvesting and all of those things, of course. But I would just harvest really abundant things like goldenrod or dandelion or, whatever I could find really in the beginning, plantain, violet. So that's what foraging means. And at this point in my career, instead of foraging all my materials, which would be my primary job, if that's what I was doing, I opt to work with small farms who are already growing medicinal herbs so that we kind of eliminate any of the variables that we need to eliminate when selling to the public, like proper identification and potential pesticide contamination. So I work with small farmers and source organic herbs from them, which is another really beautiful connection to have made in this line of work. So.
Nice. And I love hearing that was your beginning, because I feel like I was thinking about the title, which is sort of like plants for the people, and how much plants connect every single person, whether you're using it for medicine or you're eating it. It's just like the biggest thing that connects us all. And that thinking, how do people begin to trust plants? And it's like they touch them, they have relationship with them. So the fact that you began with foraging everything and touching it and forming a relationship with it, I feel like it makes me trust you way more as an herbalist, because that was how you began.
Oh, sure. Yeah, relationship is my primary, of primary importance to me in my herbalism.
Nice. Exactly. Yeah, I'm so about that too. And so for the people that are watching, this is called Symposium of Wild Hearts. I asked you what your another word for wild was, and it was free. And I agree. I really cut my teeth on Clarissa Pinkola Estes and her book, The Women Who Run with Wolves. So there's vibrant people who are watching, who want to be connected, who care about the planet, who care about themselves. Let's talk a little bit about what plants are allies for people, like, and then we'll get into some other stuff with that later. But what are good plants for people who identify as this sort of wild-hearted person who's really looking to create something from their heart in the world? Like what plants would be good for us?
That's a really big question. I think my first answer is that all plants are there to connect with humans. You can connect with any plant. And I think that's as basic as cigarettes and coffee, the coffee plant, and then, tobacco. Those are beautiful
That's so
plants.
true. I hadn't really thought about it like that. I love that.
Totally. Like, I don't want to be elitist at all. Tobacco is such a special plant and has
Yeah.
so much medicine. But to your question a bit more, we can talk about plants for the heart, first of all.
Yes, perfect. That was something I wanted to go there later, but let's go there now.
Okay, cool. Well, we can go all over. So plants for the heart that I really love to connect with are rose, first of all. Rose is such a beautiful plant.
Can we pause on rose? Because that was such an ally for me when I was healing from and still use it in the same way. Very heart healing. When my mom passed away, it was like all I wanted was, first of all, actual flowers around me. And I ate a lot of rose and put a lot of rose in my tea. And it was a huge heart healer for me. Do you know anything about the connection between rose and grief and healing?
Yeah, so it's definitely used like on a spiritual level for all of those things. If you think about the rose flower, it's pink, it's soft, it's delicate, just like we are, but it has thorns. It's tough and it's strong and it's
got boundaries.
It's got boundaries, right? And it will fight back. It will be the crown of thorns around your heart. It's a good way to think about it.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, yeah.
So I really love rose in all of the ways that you mentioned, as a tea, just to eat it, since the rose petals are edible, and if they're not sprayed, all the varieties of roses are edible. I really also love making glycerites, which is an alcohol-free tincture made with vegetable glycerin, because the glycerin is very sweet. So when you infuse the rose into the glycerin, it's like this beautiful sweet medicine. You can infuse them in honey, you can candy the rose petals. And one thing I really like to do when I'm working with rose and making medicine with rose is to include a couple of the thorns in whatever I'm making, just to infuse that whole plant medicine.
I love it.
So I really love rose for the heart, for connecting with a plant, because they are so abundant. And it's so wonderful to see roses in landscaping, like when you're walking around a city, because it's a really easy way to find a plant to connect with. And you can just take a couple petals, or you can spend some time with that plant, but it's really easy to find.
I love that.
And then my second, well, I have three for the heart I want to mention. So the second is hawthorn. And it's in the rose family, but it's a tree. It's a shrubby tree, and very similarly used to rose. So you can use all parts of the plant. You can use the leaves, flowers, and the berries. So they just bloomed up here, and actually I live in a little cabin in the woods, and we live in a hawthorn forest. And when they bloomed a few weeks ago. This is early May, so they bloomed in late April. And it's just a very heart-opening sight to see them all blooming, because they're very delicate flowers, and they bloom at the same time as dogwoods here. So they just kind of
look like.
Sure, yeah. So they're little white puffs, and they bloom at the same time as dogwoods. So they just you look out to the forest, and it's just like white flowers as far as the eye can see. And yeah, they're little clusters of white flowers, kind of like a little multiflora rose almost. They bloom in the white clusters. So the hawthorn are in little white clusters that come out. They bloom at the same time as the leaves emerge. So you can kind of just pick the whole cluster and use that in your medicine. But very similar to the rose. I've been taking hawthorn every day just kind of like as a nervous system support, because I think when we talk about opening our heart, we really need to support the nervous system because they're so intricately tied together. It's all electrical, right? So hawthorn is traditionally a heart medicine. Not only do rose and hawthorn support the emotional heart, but they support the cardiovascular system. So in terms of just looking at grief and heartbreak and opening the heart on a physical and physiological level, they work on all the levels. I also really love violet leaf and flower for grief and heart opening. I'm saying, those are two, it's a spectrum, heart opening to grief.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, that's the shadow of the heart, is that we feel so much and we have to deal with the grief and the pain. And so, yeah, thank you.
So in herbalism, we have what's called the doctrine of signatures, which is a really cool theory that says plants look like what they're used for. For example, a kidney bean is but violet flowers are heart-shaped, so that's their first doctrine of signatures. Just like the rose is pink and delicate, and just like the hawthorn berry is round and red, those are all doctrine of signatures for the heart. The violet leaves are heart-shaped, and the flowers are violet, of course, which is a very calming color. So anything in nature that's blue or purple is going to be calming, and that's true more often than not. So violets are wonderful for grief. They're very sweet and softening physiologically, but I really think that they just support people through their grief and also bring a lot of sweetness into their life. And I really have enjoyed working with violet leaves under my pillow at night for dreaming, and it has brought very sweet dreams consecutive nights in a row. So.
Oh my God, I love hearing you talk about plants. I could just listen forever. And I love how you're bringing in the magical quality of plants, because there is a very practical use, but I think everyone who's watching is interested in how to nurture themselves on a spiritual level. So tying those two together when you're talking about it is mesmerizing. And I love plants so much, and I love hearing you talk about plants. Okay, so let's move into, for me, I sometimes struggle with, like we were talking about, elitism. So it's like, some people believe and trust in plants and they use them in this way, and some people haven't been introduced to them properly, so don't have that trust. And it almost seems like, I hate to use the word privilege because I feel like there's something beyond that, but the title of this was like Plants for the People. We talked a little bit about how people can trust plants more, but what else can people do to be in relationship with plants who may not be?
Okay, so the first steps to start learning about plants and connecting with plants is just to genuinely go out and start touching them, smelling them, seeing, identifying them. So if you could just choose one plant that grows maybe in your front or backyard, or like a tree on your street, and you learn that plant and you learn its name and you learn what it's used for traditionally, and you learn some of the maybe more metaphysical qualities of the plant. That's the first step, and that's free and that's easy, and all you have to do is know what the plant looks like and have access to either a computer or some books or whatever. Library cards are free. You can go to the library and check out books on identifying plants, which is what I did, and I just went to the used bookstore. All of my knowledge for the first 3 years of this journey came from the used bookstore. Amen. And just going outside and learning what plants were under my feet, which is so much. And you can do so much with the weedy plants like violet and plantain and chickweed and cleavers, which grow everywhere. And it's free. So even the simplest medicines are going outside, picking a leaf and putting it in your mouth and chewing it. And some, like with violet and plantain, two of my favorite abundant weeds, and dandelion, I'll throw that one in there too. You can literally just pick the leaves and eat them. Oh, lovely. We'll shout out dandelion for sure then. But it's so simple. It's as simple as eating them on a regular basis, or just connecting with them and sitting with them on a regular basis.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. And so in forming these relationship with plants, I know for me, and even outside of like looking in a book, have you had any like, just by working with plants, discovered like magical qualities? Like, oh, you know, what did you call it where the plants are shaped like what they do? What's that called again?
The doctrine of signatures.
I love it. I love it. Even before knowing the doctrine of signatures, and I mean, I didn't know that was what it's called, but I'd seen, you know, the kidney bean looks like the kidney and things like that. I had worked with plants and stumbled upon some magic myself. Have you had any moments like that? I'm sure you have. You live in the woods. I mean, you look like a magical fairy. Like had to be some, you know, plants, you know, it's just so interesting thinking about how we've evolved with plants and how plants have given us messages before we knew their scientific signatures.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great segue, because I think more than like, you know, just having these, I think any flash of intuition when you're thinking or working with a plant is direct communication. And that's how plants communicate, is through our senses and through what we perceive as thoughts. Right.
Yeah.
That's, you know, plants. I was just reading this very scientific book about how they, their nervous systems are electrical, just like ours are, and they have a lot of the same neurotransmitter hormones to that communicate throughout their bodies as we do. And so I think that, like, you know, they have their electromagnetic field just like we do. And when you are in the presence of a plant, those fields can merge just like with any human or, you know, living thing. And that's how messages are transmitted. So my favorite magical stories are plants telling me, like, you know, just like funny things. Like one time I was walking down to the river by my house, and I was thinking about this plant, yellow root, which is like a native plant here. That's like an antibiotic. And I was just like, yellow root, or it has all these different names, like poor man's golden seal and all this stuff. And I just had this like flash of like gold or yellow root being like, I don't care what my name is. That's like, okay, cool, you know, like fair enough. So I love stuff like that, just kind of like getting to know the personality of the plants based on just like what they're kind of trying to transmit. I've also had really wonderful experiences of being corrected, like misidentifying a plant and being corrected. So I was like walking past like a big stand of what I thought was blue cohosh, and I was like, oh cool, there's some blue cohosh. And then like I just like stopped in my tracks. Like I just had this very definite like, nope, stop. And then I looked over and I was like, oh no, those are black cohoshes. So it's definitely like this plant being like, stop right here. And that's how I've been kind of communicated with more than once, is just like being stopped in my tracks and like forced to look around to notice something I had been looking for or like misidentified. So it's kind of more than like intuiting magical applications. It's more just being open to receiving whatever they want to tell you and share with you.
Yeah, it's true. And knowing that, I mean, I feel like you were talking about all sentient beings, like we all have sentience to us, and everything has a spirit. And if you're willing to even just use your imagination at first, if all of this sounds like your jam and you already do it, that's great. But for those who are struggling to be like, you know, I don't know, it's like just starting with your imagination and letting it play and like looking for those things. Especially with plants, I think it's so interesting. And one little short segue is I was in Joshua Tree working with some women, and we did this thing where we just went out and listened to a plant. And so I was like climbing all over Joshua Tree thinking that some like, I don't know, just like majestic thing wanted to talk to me. And it was this little shrub that like grabbed me and was hilarious. I had this like really, I don't know, connected conversation with something. And not that I didn't think that was possible, but it was just nice to be reminded that there's so much magic that's available if we want to tap into it.
Totally. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Also,
Nice.
the plants out there are so magical. Ugh.
Say that again?
The plants out there are so magical.
That's so true. That's so very much true. And so what are you looking forward to as a medicine maker, as someone who's been working with plants for as long as they can remember? Like what's exciting you about plants?
Well,
and even just like the possibility of like, well, go ahead. Yeah, we can expound after.
The possibility of what? No.
Well, just like, in so many other realms, there's been things that haven't been possible. Like, you know, before flight, it was like, that's impossible. We can't fly. Or before the 7-minute mile, like, you know, and just like, I started reading this book. I don't know if it's like, anyway, I haven't got into it enough, but I forget what it's called, but it's about how you can place a seed under your tongue and like coat it with what it needs, like with like if you have a certain imbalance and you put the seed under your tongue, it can pick up on all of that. And when you plant it, it's going to grow into a plant that's like specifically for you. Like, I think that's possible. I'm just curious, like, you know, as someone who's been working with plants this long, what it can seem far-fetched. People can be like, you're insane, that can never happen. But I just love to dream with you about what's possible with plants.
Okay. Awesome. Well, first of all, I'm really excited to see just like plant-based diets and like all of the integrative medicine and nutrition that's kind of becoming more mainstream. That's super heartening for just like the general health of our society in America. Um, because I think that like any change, you know, is going to start with us, and like, you know, changing our consciousness and changing our like personal ecology is so interconnected. So I'm really excited to see people starting to kind of like take care of themselves a bit more, and seeing that radiate outwards, which is really wonderful. But if we're going to be super imaginative,
Yeah.
put me on the spot,
It's
Aisha.
okay. Well, you can also just like riff on like what you hope for plants. I mean, it is exciting to see that more people are trusting plants, and wanting to use plants. Just looking around at the climate of like my friends, and even in Chattanooga, more people have more questions about how they could use them. I mean, all that's great and amazing too.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope someday we're like having full-on conversations with things and we can hear them in a way that we can't as well. So
definitely. I think my biggest hope that I can really like project into the future is that conventional medicine will start to open itself more to what's the word I'm looking for? Complementary therapies. And that will really, as plant healers and alternative modalities, have more of a place in the actual healing of everyone in our society. That's what I really, really, really want to see happen. And I'm so grateful for, you know, that's happening more and more. There are more integrative medicine clinics, but I would love to see plant medicine be a little more widely respected and available. And I know that's a tall ask in this culture that's paid for by pharmaceutical companies who are just patenting plant constituents and, you know, synthesizing plant constituents and all kinds of stuff like that. But I would really love to see the marriage blossom.
oh, me too. And it seems like that, to me, it's like that's where it has to go, because to me, it's like the merging of the masculine and the feminine. It's the merging of what we've known forever with what also has been evolving with us. It's like, to me, that's where it's going to go. And it's nice to meet fellow bridge makers. Like, I still have a healing center in me, and I know that I will be connected with hospitals, and I'll be complementary to especially women who are dealing with heart disease. I think, you know, and just like watching so many actual doctors become disheartened with this system, they're going to be huge allies. They're like the people that we want to connect with eventually. But no, I love that, and I see that happening for sure.
I would love to see it happen, and the cost for all of it to be free.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, plants, yeah, exactly. Plants are abundant. People can go outside. They can be free. I mean, you have to be careful where you pick them, and we can talk about any of that if you'd like to give tips for people who want to start foraging stuff that's around them and trusting their identification, skills.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's chat about that.
Sure. So foraging, I was really just exuberant and, you know, youthful and naive. So I just kind of like went for it really hard when I started. And I'm really fortunate that I never hurt myself.
Yeah.
Because I, you know, was just pretty fearless. And over time had experiences where I was like, I really shouldn't have done that, or like maybe that wasn't the safest thing to do. But I don't want people to be afraid by any means. So what I recommend is learning the weedy plants. So start with violet, plantain, chickweed, dandelion, and cleavers. Those are really easy plants that offer a ton of medicine. And then most of those don't have any poisonous lookalikes. So whenever you pick a plant to go and forage, definitely familiarize yourself with its poisonous lookalikes, at least the most common poisonous lookalikes. For example, field garlic is a wild allium, like onion garlic kind of hybrid, but its poisonous lookalike is oh gosh, I can't remember, but it's a kind of lily, which is totally fatally toxic, you know, in quantity. So just for example, stuff like that. But I don't want to discourage anyone from going out and foraging. The best things you can do are to find a wonderful field guide or to go on walks with a local herbalist who can really show you what the plant looks like, how you know, what its ID factors are, and tell you maybe what to look out for when you're on your own.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So what's in your medicine cabinet? What do you use on the regular? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I use all kinds of stuff and I kind of rotate through it. And a lot of what I do is more nutritional because the herbal school that I went to, my teacher's name is Phyllis Light and she's absolutely incredible. It was largely food as medicine and herbs are secondary. So we learned about that whole spectrum. So my regular regimen is like fish oil, evening primrose oil, beef liver capsules, as a multivitamin. So I do claim vegetarianism, but I take beef liver pills as my multivitamin because they're more bioavailable. Yeah. You know, animals are medicine too. Yeah, totally. Okay, and so I take flower essences on the reg.
Oh my God, we need to segue to that for a little bit after this.
Totally, I'd love to. So right now I'm working with a golden seal flower essence because I'm about to kind of refine and redesign my whole line of products. And golden seal is good for letting go of the past and being open to new things. So I've been working with that in preparation for, totally. And I'm definitely developing a few essence blends that I'm super excited about that work with all of the Appalachian at-risk plants essences. So I'm super excited about that. So I take flower essences, I take elderberry and reishi every day, and then I take like a medicinal mushroom powder blend from Moon Juice. What else? I'm looking. I'm like, what do I take? Hawthorn I take every day.
That's a good lineup. Uh-oh. Or did she just get booted off? It looks like it's no lag.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
Hi, welcome back. It's okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, it's still recording. Okay, so I was just admiring your herbal allies right now, all the different things you're on.
Yeah, I just want to touch on a couple more whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I've also been really into doing my nourishing herbal infusions every day. So if y'all aren't familiar with what that means, Susan Weed writes a lot of beautiful literature about making nourishing herbal infusions, which are essentially just long steeped teas. So you infuse 1 ounce of herb to 1 ounce to 1 quart of hot water for 4 hours to overnight. So I've been doing that every day and rotating a quart of linden, nettle, red raspberry, and oat straw. And that's made a huge difference in my energy levels and just general well-being. So I'm really into that right now.
I love it. I love it. Hang on, let me get my train of thought back. There was something I was going to ask you about.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries. And we even said, okay, yeah, flower essences. That was a huge eye opener for me. I think I just even took like a little online course and became really enamored with the gentle but potent medicine that a flower essence is. So can you tell people, what a flower essence is, and let's talk a little bit about the medicine that flowers can give to us.
Definitely. So flower essences are vibrational medicine. It's basically the energetic imprint of a flower captured into water and then preserved with either brandy or apple cider vinegar, but it's basically an energetic imprint. So when we think about energetic medicine, we can think about it like a song or a color. So colors make us feel all kinds of things. That's why color therapy exists. That's why you don't paint your bedroom walls red, right? We want calming colors in the bedroom. That's crazy.
It was just one wall, but it was intense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what you're going for. Maybe you want to ramp up the passion in the bedroom and paint red and pink and purple. But it definitely like affects your mood and affects your total vibration. Same with a song. So a song can make you feel a whole spectrum of things, and so can a flower. So it's basically just a more esoteric version of vibrations used as therapy. And you can make flower essences with any flower at all. You can use tree flowers, like tulip poplars blooming here right now. You can use I was going to say cut flowers, but I wouldn't really work with cut flowers. But anyway, you can use any flowers at all.
Simply because you don't know where they've come from or what's been sprayed on them. So.
Right. And because they've been detached from their source for some
time. Okay, that too.
Yeah, so that's what they are. And they act really subtly on your emotional body. So they're really wonderful for primarily emotional discomforts or needing to shift your spiritual and emotional state rather than anything physiological, unless you're trying to get at the source of that, physiological ailment. So that's what they are.
I love it. I hadn't heard that description, but I think that's so important to liken it to how we feel about colors in music, because it really, it grounds it. And it's like, you can't deny that those things have an effect on your emotional body. So that's really beautiful, and I really love working with flower essences, and I'm excited to see what you create with it.
Cool, thank you.
So one of the things I'm asking everybody, unless there's anything else that you want to share about plants, their accessibility, anything final, because I have one question that I'm asking everyone the same. So you just let me know if there's anything on your heart.
Yeah, I guess just in summation, don't be afraid to start experimenting with plants. That was one of my personal setbacks, is that I was just like, what if, and it's like, no, just start, you find some plants that are safe and gentle and you start there. Also, Susan Weed, Rosemary Gladstar, and Robin Rose Bennett are my favorite, elder herbalists to read their work and kind of familiarize yourself with some plants. So don't be afraid, jump right in and you'll find your way. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And those are some amazing women. So what the question I'm asking everyone, and I'm curious your thoughts on it, is what happens when we refuse to play by the rules? And it can be with what we eat, plant medicine, or just in general, like whatever comes up for you when I say what happens when we refuse to play by the rules.
That's when the good stuff starts, I mean, I've always believed that, because I really think that the most fulfilling life is the one that you make every decision for as to the best of your ability, And I am speaking from an extreme place of privilege that I can even have that feeling. But when we stop playing by the rules, for an herbal example, you don't go to the doctor when you get sick, which saves you so much money, which saves you so many hours of work. There's so many better places you can spend your money when you come down with a common cold and you take something like echinacea or peppermint or thyme or lemon or honey, instead of going by the rule book, which says, oh, you're sick, you go to the doctor, A, B, C, D, you get antibiotics, etc. So we kind of just reclaim what we can from life, because we're constantly giving stuff away. We're constantly giving pieces of ourselves away.
So just wanted to say thank you so much for your wisdom and your spirit and your vibe. If people want to find you, all of the links will be below, but do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about? Is you were doing a crowdfunding, is that still going?
It isn't, but if anyone wants to reach out and donate or invest, I am building a workspace slash workshop venue on our little homestead. So that would be wonderful. I did an Indiegogo campaign. And yeah, like I said, I'm about to kind of relaunch my line of things, which I'm super excited about, and incorporate a bunch of new things that I have been wanting to make for a long time. I'm going to work with ginseng for the first time, which is a really special Appalachian plant that has a lot of not only history but like contention surrounding it. And yeah, I'm super excited about all of that, and getting into a new workspace will be exciting. um, so yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Well, congratulations on everything. I love seeing you out in the world, seeing you in magazines. It's really exciting to watch, yeah, watch you bloom and change and grow. So thank you so much for taking the time, and until next time.
Yeah, thanks, Aisha. I hope to see you soon.
Okay, thanks.